Welcome to UTS Startups Confessions. I am delighted to introduce Ankit Jagannath, the founder of the Poop Coffee. So Ankit, what is Poop Coffee and why does it have such a unique name?
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here. Thanks for coming out with the weather. So the Poop Coffee is a conduit for the world's most expensive and most unique coffee experience. So why the name Poop Coffee? It's because of the way it's produced. So small animals that look a bit like possums or cats called civets eat raw coffee cherries, and for reasons not entirely understood, the beans, which is what we're after to make the coffee, come out the other end, partially digested, also known as poop, which are then collected by our farmers across Southeast Asia. So we work with farms in Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, and the Philippines. And depending on where the coffee is sourced, the coffee has different names. So in English, we'd call it civet coffee. In Bahasa Indonesia, it's called Kopi Luwak. In Tieng Viet, Vietnamese, it's called Café Chon. And these are all different names for the animals. And in the Philippines, it's called coffee alamid. So same animal, different countries, same coffee.
Amazing. And how does it compare to the regular coffee that we're used to drinking?
So if you can kind of cast your mind, so when you've had, an espresso, a short black or a long black, you'll have a coffee and you go, okay, there's that hint of coffee and you'll have that bitter, sour, acidic aftertaste. So because of natural fermentation via the animal's digestive system, it basically, the proteins in the animal remove all that harshness. So what you get is just a nice, smooth, rich coffee taste without having to add milk or sugar or anything. It's just the way coffee is meant to be.
Wow, I can't wait to taste some. In terms of, you said that the coffee is really expensive. Why is it so expensive?
So in 2001, Guinness World Records certified Kopi Luwak as the world's most expensive coffee. So with normal coffee, obviously it grows on trees. A farmer will go and pick it when it's ripe and depulp the fruit. And so it's a bit more predictable on how and when the coffee is available. Obviously, when an animal gets involved, just by definition, there's a longer time for the coffee to be ready, let's say.
And how is the coffee collected once it's excreted from the civets?
Yes, so the farms we work with all have what's called wild Kopi Luwak, which means there's no farms or there's no caging or farming of the animals. So the farms are near forests and jungles where the animals naturally habitate. And so the animals are nocturnal. So during the day, the farmers are in the field cultivating, making the coffee grow. And at night, the animals come onto the farms and then go back into the jungle or the forest and deposit the coffee. And in the mornings, they'll call it luwak hunting, where they'll go, okay, we're expecting to find coffee in these areas naturally. And so sometimes they won't find the coffee because the civets decided to go somewhere else. And so that all adds to the cost and just the time it takes to make the coffee.
Yeah, and so that means that the supply varies based on whether, depending on the deposits that are made each day. How does that, I guess, impact your product?
So on average, each civet will produce about 7 to 10 grams, so about 1 cup of coffee's worth of coffee beans per night. So multiply that by obviously hundreds of animals in and around our farms, multiplied by about 30 farms that we've now got in our network. Kind of keeps our supply somewhat regular, but it does vary farm to farm.
Yeah, amazing. And so how did you come up with this idea?
So I was on exchange in 2017 in Indonesia's top university, and my friend actually took me to a coffee farm tour. I didn't know anything about coffee at the time. And basically, I noticed that there was an animal on their coffee farm going, what's that about? We're here for coffee, right? And they explained, yes, this is the world's most expensive coffee. And so that was kind of where that initial idea of, oh, this is something very different. I don't think we have that in Australia. And maybe there's a way for me to bring it back after my exchange. Fast forward to 2019, I'm looking at this government grant, which basically says, if you start a new business, we will pay for your expenses for the first 12 months. And it goes back, well, I've studied in Indonesia, I've got a bit of a network there. Maybe this is something I can combine, get the grant, and get my business off the ground.
Amazing. Now, in Australia, we're really serious about our coffee. So how did you go about validating that this was a taste that Australians wanted in their coffee?
Great question. Yes, in Australia, we've got the best coffee in the world. And now we're also part of that network. So the thing about coffee is it's an incredibly competitive and incredibly saturated market. And we kind of went the opposite way, knowing what we knew about coffee at the time. You know, everyone's the purest, most richest, unique experience. We literally went, we're poop. So we just
One
knew,
way to cut through the noise.
we just knew that we were that unique, and it was kind of, we knew that you were either going to be curious and want to have a go, or you were just like, no, that's not for me. So that's kind of how we managed to go, look, you either know what this is, you want to have a go, or you're not interested. And as a small business, a startup, you need to be able to say no. And luckily, our customers were doing that for us.
And what was your experience like in terms of navigating the importing process, the Australian importing process?
Yes, Australia has one of the strictest biosecurity protocols on earth. We're actually a listed prohibited substance. You can't bring Kopi Luwak into Australia in large quantities. So as a business, that's a bit of trouble for us. So it took about 6 months at the start when we first incorporated, a lot of back and forth with the government, trying to understand what it would take for us to bring coffee into Australia. And then it turned out, because of all the previous conditions, we had to develop a new standard for biosecurity, which said, under these conditions, as long as we have all this documented evidence, then we'll let you bring coffee to sell.
And so where can people buy your coffee?
Thepoopcoffee.com. So we were born in 2019. So our plan A was hotels, cafes, restaurants. We don't need to say what happened in 2020, but hotels, cafes, and restaurants weren't all that interested in trying a new, broadly untested product. So poopcoffee.com, thepoopcoffee.com website, and we sold there, which was kind of an interesting fast forward and short circuit, because we became global very early on. So as of today, we've sold basically everywhere in the Americas, Africa, Europe, Asia, the Middle East. If you can probably name a country, we've sold to them or their neighbor.
And so had you run a e-commerce site before this?
No, and as I said, even putting up a website wasn't the first thing I thought to do. It was, let's just find the decision makers in hotels, cafes, restaurants, and then when that wasn't possible, I then needed a way to obviously sell all this coffee that I was about to bring into the country. And so, yeah, a lot of drinking through the fire hose, as we call it, lots of mistakes made, lots of lessons to learn, but luckily we managed to figure out in just the right way that's kept us here today.
Amazing. And so you're direct to consumer, all online. I'm assuming Shopify, that's your main channel. What are some of the challenges and biggest mistakes that you've made in sort of running an e-commerce store?
Oh, absolutely. The short answer was almost like starting too late. So had I my time again, I would basically, run ads, run blogs, post on social media. We waited until we had the coffee before we made any noise, and that kind of put us back 3 to 4 months, because by the time we had the coffee and we started raising awareness, it takes time. You're a new business. No one's, we had the .com, but you really need to stand out and do all these things which take time. And so those were lessons learned.
And so how are you reaching your customers now?
We're actually just about to go live with our ads campaign and our affiliate marketing campaign. So traditionally, we got just the right kind of lucky with the domain name. So as I mentioned, it has a bunch of names: Civet Coffee, Kopi Luwak, Coffee Alamy. So initially we were going to call it Aussie Luwak because we're an Australian company selling Kopi Luwak. But looking at all the blank faces today, we can see why we didn't go with that name. Thepoopcoffee.com, one of the most searched questions with coffee is, why does coffee make me poop? So we ranked for a completely unrelated search term. Somehow, and again, this could be manufactured with some SEO knowledge, digital marketing knowledge, but we just got the craziest kind of lucky that people were searching for something tangential, we popped up, and they go, well, might as well give it a go and see what happens.
Now, I know that we were talking earlier, and you mentioned that you did our UTS Rapid Value Creation Program, which is an online program that helps you launch digital businesses. Did you do that program before you launched the Poop Coffee?
No, I actually did it about 3 years into the Poop Coffee,
Right.
and what that program did solidify was that weird hack that we found, which was ranking for a slightly unrelated but still relevant search. And then what I didn't know until the program was the importance of people going onto our website and then buying our products, reviewing them, and then going, hey, I tried this coffee from this website. These are called backlinks, which I'm still kind of getting my head around. And I had a look, we had hundreds of backlinks. I was like, who did this? Why did they do it? And then I realized people pay for these. We were getting them for free.
That's amazing. All right, going right back to before the Poop Coffee, tell me about where your career started.
Yes, so in 2018 was my final semester at UTS, and just the absolute perfect luck that UTS startups started in my final semester, and a friend basically said, hey, there's this new startup community forming, I think you'd be a really good fit for it. And so I had a little bit of experience with startups and small businesses, with a few hackathons and a few kind of events around, big companies now like Canva, Atlassian, where I kind of knew I wanted to do something in and around that space, but I didn't know what those steps were. It's like, I have an idea, I've done hackathons, I keep losing my team members. What's this thing that's going to keep me going to actually form and start the business? And happily, UTS Startups was just what I needed.
Amazing. Okay, so where is the Poop Coffee today?
It actually feels like a business. It started off basically as a last minute uni assignment thing to basically qualify for a grant. And now we have basically a distributed team across all these countries. We have a content team in the Philippines. We have operations team in Indonesia. We have supporters in Vietnam, Malaysia, all contributing, which now I'm kind of less involved in the day-to-day order fulfillment, packing, and I'm able to kind of focus almost on plan A, which is hotels, cafes, restaurants, trying to get into that B2B sector.
How do you go from being the only person on your team having to do a multitude of things versus now you've got a whole team, albeit it's global and they're all remote? How do you navigate that sort of change?
Again, in hindsight, the pandemic, honestly, 2019, best year to start a business. Everyone's now familiar with remote work, with obviously, using project management tools and systems to just go, hey, here's what I need you to do, tag, allocate, and here's what's going to happen next. So I kind of learned along with everyone, so it doesn't feel like, I've had to enforce or impose any kind of, hey guys, we're going to have online meetings virtually at this time. Everyone kind of gets that this is how business is done nowadays.
Wow. In terms of communications, I know we have like a couple of startups, or several startups actually, that are looking to get remote workers or sort of overseas workers. How do you navigate the cultural difference working with your team that are spread across all these different countries, and how do you make sure that, I guess, communication is clear and, operationally everyone is still working as efficiently as they can be?
Yeah. So thanks to a bit of my earlier experiences, I have a bit of an onboarding where I basically give a few, let's call them low risk tasks, which are still relevant and appropriate to the roles of anyone starting with the Poop Coffee. And then that way they get their hands dirty with the systems, they get to make mistakes in very low stakes situations. The other team members get to kind of see what they're doing and go, hey, I noticed you did this, here's the right way to do that. And so it's just kind of, because it was born out of necessity, it's developed very organically into a way that works for everyone.
And this sort of dovetails nicely into the next question, which is, what does your technology stack look like on the back end? What technologies are you using to run your startup?
Oh, it's literally Shopify and WhatsApp as the main two technologies. I can run my business on my phone right now. I try not to because don't want to be addicted to that. But yeah, it's what a great time to be alive, where literally a few clicks gets you a website, which is also your shop, which is also your blogs. It's just everything is such a convenient, conveniently packaged tool.
Cool. And in terms of the future, like the next 3 to 5 years, where do you want to take the Poop Coffee?
Yes, so had you asked me that at the start, I'd be like, oh, it'd be great to sell overseas, but we've now sold just about everywhere. So where I see the business going is more on the transparency side. So we work in a slightly controversial area of coffee, which obviously involves animals. We're doing all we can to make sure that we only onboard farms which are ethical, meaning they have wild animals only, no cages, no farming. And a lot of the feedback we get is on the transparency. And that's kind of where I'm looking into seeing, oh, what do these certifications mean? Is there a way we can regularly update to go, hey, here's how we can prove what we're doing beyond just, a tick or a frog or something on our packaging, and really showcase in as real time as possible, hey, here's your coffee, here's the farm, here's the farmers, here's how we know everything we say is good.
So you're kind of adding social proof to your product.
Absolutely. I mean, our customers care about where their coffee's from, how their coffee tastes, and we want to empower them to go, hey, on your story it says this, can you prove it?
So you've tried a lot of different things while you were studying in sort of the entrepreneurship space, and you've tried them across multiple industries. Can you tell us a time where you tried something, it failed miserably, but you learned a really valuable lesson?
Oh, where do I begin? So many ideas. I literally, when I first, and that was kind of the beauty of UTS startups, being early on, we were startup number 30 or so, we're into the hundreds. So to see that kind of community grow, and a lot of it having just graduated, you don't know what you don't know. So you just go, and even with coffee, it's like, oh yeah, you just buy coffee and sell it. How hard can that be? And you need that naivete a little bit, otherwise you probably wouldn't start, given how difficult running a business actually turns into. And one of the biggest failures I had was we were building basically a tool to measure basically your cloud data usage. And then we had basically a guy with a big name, big reputation say, hey, you should turn this into a budgeting app. And so we're like, well, if he's saying it, that must be right. And so we spent 6 months, untold hours, blood, sweat, tears, working on this problem that we didn't have interest in because we were just following that wrong signal. This guy said, hey, if you do this, it's probably good. And then, where'd all this time go? Who are the customers? Who are the investors? Why are we doing this? It was just, one of the biggest lessons. Only listen to your customers, because they're the ones that you're building for, that you're selling for, that you're solving a problem for. And 6 months and I won't get back.
So on that note, what are your current customers telling you about the Poop Coffee?
Yes, the most recent challenges is they want to see us in stores, ironically. So that's where kind of that B2B connection has resurfaced. And also on the transparency, everyone's still a bit, you say you're doing this, can you prove it? So just adding that social proof, I feel will really satisfy the existing customers and hopefully tip anyone on the edge, in the middle, over the edge.
Awesome. And to finish up, for all those aspiring entrepreneurs out there, and also for yourself, if you could what lessons would you want to impart on yourself before you'd begun?
Absolutely. Start this weekend. Literally, I started based on a grant that I treated like a uni assignment, and here I am today. By the time you feel you're ready, the opportunity's gone. Just go, what if? And then literally that's all you really need to try it. You can start blogs, you can post in forums just to validate, test your idea. There are so many avenues to just getting started today if you wanted to.
Thank you so much for joining us, Ankit. That was such an exciting interview, and I can't wait to try the Poop Coffee in the near future. Thank you for those that have come in today, and also those that are coming in virtually. Have a great Friday, and I look forward to seeing you in the next UTS Startups Confessions.
Thanks so much.